It'd be a big deal, and so are these picks and bans. Let's move into game number 2 and see what kind of adjustments MV3, or rather Bedtimes Calling, need to make, as MV3 were the ones that grabbed the game. That's how big of an upset it was. I just assumed it was Bedtimes Calling that grabbed it. It will be MV3 in that first pick spot here, so it looks like Bedtimes Calling has chosen to go second in this one, and Merlin has already been taken away.
That's what they banned, that's what Bedtime Calling banned away the last time with the first ban, and surprising to see that when you are the first pick to ban away Merlin and not do some throwaway bans, it was actually Bedtime Calling that banned away the Jingwei, not wanting to deal with that in the first game. They're going to do the same thing in game number 2. I think they had a very comfortable matchup there against the Soul versus Hachiman with how much action there was in the mid and the Soul lane, so that way they could just casually farm away.
Shibalanke has been banned away too, another pick that's been prioritized so far in this set, even beyond that first pick, which means King Arthur now is on the table, certainly could get picked up. Naja, who we talked about last time, I don't believe was picked or banned, so another one that you could certainly look at, but no surprise that Camelot and Avalon are going to be well represented here in this game by King Arthur.
It definitely does feel that way, because the Achilles would just popped off for Jox. It's like, all right, when you're going to have that kind of a performance, we're going to target you out. But now you're giving up King Arthur. It's up to MV3 to prove that this Arthur is first pick worthy, though. Stick it in the Soul lane and get a great matchup, maybe even aggressive jungler to make sure that whatever the Arthur goes against is not going to get ganked. You got to be the one initiating it.
Right. We've seen this RDO in the matchup before. We see Camazotz over there sometimes. Some aggressive picks that can kind of box up against him and have some sustain of their own are usually the answers, and then you sit on this King Arthur all game if you can to keep him from reaching that late game dominance. But it's RDO and Nemesis, so the RDO makes sense. Nemesis can shred those prots too to try and lock him down.
And that's going to be the key factor, because you know Arthur is going to be aggressive, and that's how the matchup goes. No matter who he's against, he's going to want to trade out, especially once a Gladiator Shield is completed, getting cooldown reduction, turning those 14-second cooldowns into about 12.6-second cooldowns, getting all that sustain going for yourself. As long as he has his own blue buff, and you sprinkle some Totem of Coups onto the mix, that King Arthur is going to be hyper aggressive, so you have to lean on that a little bit with the Nemesis, so the Divine Judgment slowing him down, locking him in place, finding those early game kills.
Well, I got to imagine now, totally, that a Fafnir is going to be either picked or banned, because Soul and Uller just went over to MV3. Yeah. Definitely can't let that coerce come through with those two double auto-attack focused characters that could certainly get out of control. Guan Yu ban, I like this one too. That was a difficult problem for them last time as well with Jose on that one. So ban that, or Loki rather, on that one. So ban it away.
And the thing was, even though it was MV3 playing the Guan Yu, with Bedtime Calling having the next pick, they're fearful that that Guan Yu is going to go to them. Knowing that it's an RDO and a Nemesis though, a Guan Yu up against an Arthur, not very favorable for the Guan Yu early game. You want to really stick the RDO wherever that Arthur is going, but Guan Yu support could be an interesting factor, making him rotate to that mid lane pre-level 12.
Right.
Because Soul Laner is not going to make their presence felt at that mid-game portion, but the supports can. And that's when Cavalry Charge is at its most effectiveness. Even if you do build tanky, just the base damage from all those shots is going to melt a mage.
It absolutely will. As tier gets selected, so Bedtimes Calling, we're worried about Jox. They banned away 2 junglers, and they're picking up the tier. So not so much concerned with picking up the Fafnir, and it looks like with the tier here that they're putting the tier into the matchup against the King Arthur, not even the RDO. So far from Bedtimes Calling, a curious draft.
I think a lot of it comes down to the non-CC immunity here between the Soul, the Uller. Arthur needs to use his ultimate to make sure he has the immunity frame, so I like the idea of the tier. Now, when I look at the tier versus Arthur, I just think Arthur is tier 2.0 at the end of the day. But
in some ways, yeah.
But I think a good Blink Fearless, you can never really replace that, even if you make an upgraded version of it.
It's very good initiation if it can land, right? It can feel very difficult to try and get away from it. As it is Khepri that comes in and not the Fafnir. Very surprising there for MV3. So, I mean, this is still a strong pick. It'll keep these carries alive, but you think that a Fafnir probably would have done better, especially with the Bakasura. Yeah. I'm actually very curious they don't pick that up. Kukulkan to round it out.
I like the Khepri though, because you want to be able to keep your Bakasura alive, right? Get that Scarab's Blessing going. The Fafnir with Shogun's Kusari last game for Bedtime Calling wasn't really enough to pop off for the Hachiman, and even though they have a Solon and an Uller for MV3, I like the synergy between this Bak and the Khepri.
That could certainly be strong enough to try and take them down. Maybe he can sit on top of this Kukulkan. Either way, we'll find out. Moving to the game, MV3 up against Bedtimes Calling. Aggro and Tom take it away.
That's us, and we're here for game number 2. Mavericks will take on a demon type deal.
Yeah, it's spooky, isn't it?
It's pretty spooky. Right away, Loki Berto trying to deal with Kana here on the King Arthur. Is a very, or excuse me, on the tier, Gilberto, the King Arthur himself. Me and Aggro on the cast, and Doug, as always, on the observation. We actually put a piece out on Doug recently.
I saw that. That was cool.
It was pretty cool. The observer rank, very, very easy. See how this dual lane winds up going. This Khepri pick, will it be important, Ryan?
I think it will. A lot of talk on the desk about whether or not this or the Fafnir was the better pick.
Right.
And I think that Fafnir is the obvious synergy, right? I mean, you've got so many auto attackers, so just pick the guy who boosts auto attack. But at some point, you don't really need that much more auto attack boosting. Build a Shogun's Kasari on this Khepri, and I think you're good to go. I think that keeping Jox alive and Jose alive when they're playing very aggressively is a better look for Kino in this game than something like the Fafnir. So I've got no problem with the Khepri at all.
I completely agree there, especially like if you're only going into the Fafnir and all eyes on the basic attack, which kind of is the truth. I mean, a couple of Witchblades and Midgardians can kind of shut you down. This spreads your approach a little bit more so and allows you to have multiple tricks. Bedtimes calling now, looking for the invade. Here's a little bit of help as well from Jacques blinking over, and Jose Reitu is going to be here as well. The 4-on-2, and the axe won't find a home, but Dragon King still cut down to about half, and what could have been.
They both live. That's crazy that both members of Bedtimes calling get away, but being level 2 does an awful lot for you when your dual lane opposition is only sitting at level 1 still. Jose missing the axe, and Jacques blinking in, playing a Bakasura, and it just doesn't really do anything. Level 2 Baka does a whole lot of nothing when it comes to fighting you. He's great at out securing you because of Eat Minion, but other than that, doesn't really provide a whole lot.
You really need that jump, boosting the damage and such, and finding some of the other stuff, so certainly something to think about. As far as the solo lane is concerned, it's King Arthur and, well, cosplay King Arthur. What's your take on Tyr versus Lokiberto's character?
Yeah, I think that Tyr has potential to play pretty aggressively in this lane early on, but as soon as Glad Shield hits for Lokiberto, I just don't see a way where Tyr can out-trade really consistently. He'll get those big bursts of damage coming from the Fearless combo, and then a big burst heal coming from his defensive stance Power Cleave. And then after that, he's just kind of sitting there until his next round of cooldowns is up, whereas Lokiberto's always going to have cooldowns ready and available to use. So pre-Glad Shield, maybe he can get a lead, but even at this point where we are, it seems like Lokiberto's still getting the better end because he can just clear the wave more effectively than Tyr can. Kana probably should be trying to be pretty aggressive and maybe try and poke out Lokiberto and then just use that Power Cleave defensively to clear the wave a little bit and heal himself back up after dealing out that poke.
Yeah, we've seen a number of players kind of deal with King Arthur recently, some by way of sustain, some by way of arguing against him. And the Tyr, I'm not sure if he has enough in either direction. That might be a little bit tough once Glad Shield comes online, like you said. So we'll keep an eye on that. Jacques certainly a little bit less aggressive this early, and I think again that has to do with the character selection. The Achilles certainly very different than the early game Baka, but another invade on the purple one more time from MV3.
Again, level 4 against level 3, and Beast very, very low. He's forced back, and they already lost a decent amount of minions to the tower. In fact, Kino lost that whole wave. Beast might have gotten an archer or two worth of gold, or worth of experience, but none in the way of gold. And there's no way that they're getting any closer to this purple buff or getting any farm.
Kino's going to dash into the wall. Here comes Nemesis, and there goes the Khepri. Dragon King. I'm going to set that one up. Nice play by Starpay again. And, well, that one was just easy. And straight up, Kino, you can't dash into a wall, homie. If he actually dashes out, he's fine.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate situation there for first blood.
Truly unlucky for Kino. It's one of those situations where you say to yourself, well, we can't be losing all these purple buffs, so we have to go and defend it. But going to defend it actually hurts you far more because now you're losing lane farm and you're not able to get the purple and Kino ends up dying. You really just have to take your losses sometimes and understand where you can get away with losing out on that farm. Jock's level 5 now. Call him over on the next purple buff invade and let him go to town with Regurgitate. There's a lot more things that you can do. You should have a lot of pressure in mid lane early on, and now that Jose Raito has that Transcendence. Play aggressive there.
Well, Beast is going to be caught. As soon as this is over, we'll see a stun, and the beads are good. No ultimate still just yet. Dragon King under the tower. We'll take a shot. Kino's here with Jose, and that should line up the Uller combo. And the axe. And the basic. Oh, his Beast picks that one up. The ultimate out of the mid lane mage will whiff. That should be the end of the engagement. 1-1 now, as MV3 finally answer back in this duo lane.
Jox didn't use his ultimate or his leap, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's already got Hasten Katana, so Arya Cruz should have been dead from that position, especially with no boots. He's only got Spiked Gauntlet at that point. Jox playing that one overly safe in my mind. Ollie uses the ultimate, which I think is actually a good spot, which is the please don't chase my hunter anymore ult, and it doesn't matter if it hits. But I'm pretty sure that if Jox ults, Arya's gonna dash, and as soon as Arya dashes, you just leap on top of him and keep on chomping. I'm a little surprised that Jox didn't go for that.
An actual zoning ult there coming out from Ollie for sure. Red buff, the target of the focus. Bedtimes calling will unsuccessfully look for the invade. Jose Raito now with the red buff in tow. No mana though, so he'll likely fall back after he clears the wave. And the Oracles go to Bedtimes calling. So a little over 1,000 gold for the team that lost game number 1. Nice look here. The attention to the dual lane has been very, very, very important.
It has, and no one's gone to solo at all. And I'm surprised at least that Jox hasn't, because as I mentioned, I mean, the Loki Berto should be able to outtrade pretty effectively from this position, and that Cripple from Regurgitate will force Kana to use an early Lawbringer. Loki Berto should be able to get good poke damage off in this lane just by using his ultimate aggressively because of the 20-second cooldown. So I really feel like that's the lane where I want to see Jox go in the early game.
Really nice cripple field there coming out from Arya to prevent the abduct coming out from Kino. Like that play. And usually players are dissuaded from ganking the solo side because of how tanky characters are. Jax has true damage. Bacchus is one of the characters that can gank over there on the solo side. So I'm with you. I'd like to see him a little bit more on the solo. But frankly, I'd just like to see him a little bit more involved in general. You've got Katana, and you can kind of make moves. We're going to see him jump on top of Ali and really just a little bit of damage. Nice ultimate used in defense.
Now he's in some trouble, though, as Sarpei used that Divine Judgment, just able to get outside of range of that Whirlwind. And here comes the Dragon King. Good rotation coming in from him. Forces the beads from Jose. Root there as well, and that sets up Arya for an easy wild hunt.
Now the conversation as the players try to go back. Kino trying to kill himself. Will show up a little bit too late. Does not get out of there. The swag flip over the top for the rotation out of Kana. Just barely grabs the Kepri, and down he'll go. 3 for none. Bedtime calling. Answering back with a vengeance here in game number 2.
And here's where King Arthur's got to do some King Arthur stuff, but the cripple field laid underneath him. Still able to get out of it. Good damage, but not good enough. Arya Cruz gets another kill underneath their belt. 2-0-2 for this Kernados, and just as sloppy of a fight as you could ask for from MV3. An ultimate from Jox that has no real chance of getting kills. Jose Raito plays pretty aggressively and then doesn't get rezzed by Kino, who rezzes himself, but then dashes in with 1 HP.
I kind of wanted MV3 to do gold there. They had both their auto attackers in a tank, and
there's
everybody from Bedtime had backed. Yeah,
there's potential for that, but they've got no power, Tom. I mean, it's cooldown boots for Beast.
That's fair.
It's Transcendence and not even full boots coming from Jose Raito. I just don't think they would have had the damage necessary to bring it down this early.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Halfway done with that Transcendence, but the look from Bedtime's calling the back right there was. That's always so unfortunate, but because you know the fight was very sloppy, because of how sloppy that was, there just wasn't enough health for the team to really look for the objective, because that's key point what you're looking for. That's why you fight, but unable to really grab it. Still a nice lead for them, 3,000.
This Kukulkan pick has really neutralized what Jose Raito did in game 1, which is play very aggressively in this lane. Ollie's ability to just drop Whirlwind and walk away and not need to be anywhere near the lane has been really effective in keeping him alive. I'm surprised that Jose hasn't just been jumping on top of the Kukulkan and really forcing him to not even be able to Whirlwind the wave. He doesn't have a whole lot of movement to get away from you if you can get on top of him. So I feel like Jose Raito, we haven't really watched this lane at all in the early game, but for him to be down 2 levels at this point is not where Uller wants to be. As I mentioned in game 1, when you're even or ahead, it doesn't feel nearly as early game focused on this Uller. When you're in this position, you feel like you may have already lost your biggest window of opportunity.
We'll see how that goes, if he's able to counteract it or not. Red buff goes to MV3. Bedtime's calling, we're knocking on the door, but now here's the jump onto Arya. Transformation good onto Jacques, and a nice interrupt coming out from Dragon King. That'll separate the team, and Arya's gonna be safe and sound behind enemy lines. Nice play there coming out from, well, the entirety of Bedtime's calling.
Good rotation to save Arya Cruz there for sure. The Bakasura CC immunity on Regurgitate lasting just a little bit too short to keep him up in the face of that wild hunt. Jose Raito in a lot of trouble, receives the Scarab's blessing, and Kana gonna let him off the hook, instead turn his attention back toward Loki Berto.
Now the entirety of the team just on the other side. There's the ultimate over the top, and Kana will be grabbed immediately. Meanwhile, Loki Berto being the controller against the enemy squad. 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4, slowly being chipped down. Glad Shield ain't gonna heal you that much, buddy, as the damage from the other way is coming through, and Ollie takes down Loki Berto. Great play by Bedtime's calling there, and I need to highlight this. They played this correct by coming in and out, like I compared it to an MMO fight, like a big boss fight, where if you all surround King Arthur and just push all your buttons, he might be able to out-heal you. Whether or not that's okay is a different story. That's what's going to happen. But so what you saw Bedtime's calling doing it, they collapse, they deal some damage, and then they spread out to make sure that when Loki's abilities come out, he can't heal off of everybody.
Exactly.
Everybody gets away with 1 HP, but they get away and Loki dies.
And I mean, look, he lived for a long time, but let's call a spade a spade. It's because MV3 Bedtime's calling were missing a lot of abilities on him during that time, and allowing him to stay up longer than he really should have. But you're right, they did do a good job. Didn't land their abilities, but did spread out properly and keep him from healing up consistently.
BTC now looking for the Gold Fury. A couple of players local, but they're far away. Kepri's the closest, doesn't really have any threat. And Jacques is here. No. That's all Bedtime's calling. He did have the blink, but wasn't able to go for it. Kino now in trouble, ults himself, but oh, that's it? That's it?
That's it. And you got rotations coming in through the mid lane from Loki Berto. You've already used your Kernanos ultimate and Kukulkan ultimate. I don't mind that call to disengage from Bedtime's calling. You got a Kepri ultimate basically for free off of Kino walking into that Spirit of the Nine Winds. So not too bad there from Bedtime's calling. Get the objective and don't give up too much on the back end.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of get yourself carried away there and spiral out. Well, we got a lead. Let's keep pushing it. Could certainly spell your demise. The Kings back at it again. Evenly matched, 13-13.
You know, really nice of Kana, by the way, to not go with the King R tier skin in this lane.
Yes.
Thank you. And I mean this unsarcastically. Thank you.
They're both big dudes with big swords, which is already problematic for me.
Yes.
Like right here, I mean, that's tough. That's tough.
One of them is left-handed and drags the sword, and the other one holds it upright and is right-handed.
But doesn't Tyr hold his hand? Doesn't he hold it upright?
In defensive stance, it's like it's backhanded grip.
Yeah.
But no, it's never upright.
Jacques trying to keep himself upright there. Doesn't time it right. Arya Cruz still underneath the tower. The rotation is good enough. Jacques needs to use... Ooh, Jacques needs to watch out.
No, just way too far away. Ollie can't keep up with the double katana speed buff. Great blink there from Sarpé right on top of where Jose was going, and Jose is just in a ton of trouble.
He's got help.
Kepri ultimate, though, from Kino might be enough to keep him alive.
It will be. The Wiggles as well as the buff. We'll get him out of there. Now the return fight. Loki Berto going to miss a lot of the King Arthur stuff. Well, here comes always Beast. Red buff dropped. And continuing to fight around it. Bedtime's calling wants to fight here. And MV3 aren't really giving them anything to mess with. A nice exit from Jose. I like that he stayed as well and provided some damage. If he doesn't, it's likely that that team fight goes out of control.
Good ultimate from Kino as well, and sprint to make sure that Jose Raito is getting out of there. Good. That's what you pick the Khepri for, is to save your teammates in that exact sort of manner. But Sarpei, gotta give him credit. Had a really nice blink, predicting exactly where Jose was going to go, and forced Kino to make a nice play.
So Jax gets 1 second of CC immunity on the ultimate when he jumps, when he activates it. And we've seen this, I think, at least 3 times where he jumps onto the hunter, and then he gets polymorphed. You need to, you don't need to jump and immediately activate that ultimate. I think it's very much the game of chicken like Naja does when he sashes in and then sits there, you gonna beads? Did you do it? All right, and then we go. That's what you've got to look for with this Bakasura. Jump in and go, all right, ult. And then as soon as Arya Cruz is forced to ult, you can follow up.
Jose just able to get up and over that Kukulkan ultimate. Squall off the mark, and Jose's actually safe.
Oh my goodness, that shouldn't have happened. Jose out of there.
Yeah.
A little bit of column A, column B as far as juking and missing on the side of MV3 and BTC, respectively.
Especially with the root coming from the Dragon King, he's got to land that all the way, and then if he does, then Ollie doesn't have to use that Squall early on. You just wait for the root to guarantee you. Definitely a lot that could have gone better there for MV3. But you're right, when talking about Jax and specifically trying to get on top of Arya Cruz, you use Blink to get yourself, you have to get in melee range right away, because you need to be saving your leap for their charge, and you need to be saving your ultimate for CC immunity on the Wild Hunt. Now he's got Purification Beat, so theoretically he could just ult early on to give himself the slow and the cone autos, that way he catches up, then he can Purification Beats the Wild Hunt. But why go through all that when you could just blink better?
Ultimate from Ollie, off the mark, but Jax just... And I like the team's decision. Just stun him in the NATO and watch.
Yep.
And just the tick damage takes him down. No basic attack from the Nemesis, just trust in the damage. Fantastic. Pyromancer being attacked here by Bedtimes calling. Kino. Berto's here, pushed against the wall. Jose around the backside, a little bit too slow. Could be caught out, but dashes away. Nice jump. And Jose over the wall, safe and sound, question.
Thought Kana might just keep on going and use the Lawbringer, but
thought about it.
Too far. Too far away for him, especially with Jose going for the blink instead of Aegis yet again in this game. I liked it because he was ahead in game 1. You can track down the Giannis pretty well, play aggressively, but against a lot of dot characters or telegraph damage characters like Kukulkan, Nemesis I think is pretty easy to use Aegis against a lot of the time. You can Aegis Wild Hunt damage, which is oftentimes relevant. You can Aegis Lawbringer damage, which is almost always relevant. There's just a lot that Jose could have used Aegis for in this game. It's going to be hard for him to utilize his blink effectively in my mind.
Primal Fury goes down to Bedtimes calling nice and easily. And just like game number 1 looked for MV3, we're now in a position where it's looking that way on the other side. 73-06 is the lead here for Bedtimes calling. And they're poised to make note. Best of 3. So if they win, we'll go on to an extra game, some bonus Smite. Looking at what MV3 has done to deter Bedtime, it really has been a whole bunch of nothing. And I mean that quite literally, the only kill on the hands of the sun.
Blink forward from Kana to clear the wave and then just start walking away slowly.
Okay.
So he stops the push, I guess.
MV3 looked so powerful in game number 1. Yeah. Are they like playing with their food here?
I don't think so. I think that it might have been Bedtimes calling maybe a little bit play with their food in game 1. I mean, they just got up to such a good lead and then played it very well from there. The Bedtimes calling didn't really have a chance to get back into it, but in this game, without MV3 getting off to that really hot start, we've really seen how Bedtimes calling's map control has been much better than that of MV3.
Interesting. Maybe MV3 needs to stick with Jax on these early game aggressors because he hasn't really done anything with the Bakasura.
No, he hasn't. And it's weird to think of Bakasura as not the early game aggressor, but he really isn't.
He's not.
He's not your get kills really, really early on sort of character. It's usually right around here that he becomes nearly unstoppable, but it's hard to do all the time.
In trouble. He walked on and stunned and all sorts of The ultimate good enough, and he's going to dash away. Bedtime's calling now, looking at the tower, backing off just a little bit. While left-hand side, there's going to be a fight. Soul versus the Hunter. Arya Cruz versus the World. Here's Jocks as well. And the basic attacks, while the Aussie is a little bit better. Help provided to you by your own jungler. And while the ultimate is down, Ollie's still here for business.
No way Beast gets this back off. They're all chasing the Bakasura. They let the Soul off the hook. Jocks will fall here, crippled, and lets the Whirlwind do the job again, but probably should have been 2 kills there for Bedtimes calling. Arya Cruz, Aussie, man, this new and improved, to say the least. Tier 3 Aussie really coming through in the clutch. The minions provided by Regurgitate, often a hindrance if you're up against them, but in this case, they were a boon for Arya Cruz. Guaranteed lifesteal.
Berto on the run now as Bedtime's calling, just looking at the middle lane. All 5 players here in local. His Beast is behind, and look, Berto going to be behind in the mathematical sense as he falls down for the 3rd time in this game. 2 levels junior in the tier.
Now a tier 2 siege, but no minion wave. Beast has that all the way up this lane by the enemy tier 2 tower. 5 members here shouldn't be too much of an issue. Eventually this tier 2 will fall, but look at all the map pressure gained by MV3 elsewhere. Tier 2 on the right-hand side. They got a tier 1 in mid. They got a tier 1 in left. The push before that.
A big deal.
They're getting their gold back, even if it's taken them a little bit.
So this is exactly what we were talking about when Bedtime's calling was losing. They were split pushing, but they were split pushing with characters imperative for the defense. They were kind of characters that aren't really excelling at that. Ullr and Soul are 2 characters that excel at split pushing, and I mean, you want every character there for defense, right? But Khepri is going to be a little bit more effective than the Ullr when it comes to trying to defend a Phoenix push or this, that, or a third. So I think that MV3 took the page out of Bedtime's calling where, all right, we can't fight straight up because we're down 10K, so we're going to go ahead and split push and make it back. But I think they did it the better way.
Yeah, that was the right idea for them for sure. It gets Jose Raito some much needed farm. So he's gone for a very aggressive ability-based build, but when you're behind, this build looks a lot worse in comparison to the traditional, you know, pen auto attack centric build. Bedtime's calling it's an easy fire giant. No one there from MV3 to even think about the defense. And it's situations like that, right, where I think in game 1, Jose Raito sees Ollie on the top left. You already know where Kana is, and you already know where the rest of the team is probably on fire giant, but instead he jumps away. I mean, he's going to die no matter what from this position, right? So you may as well try and take the enemy with you from that position. I just think that this Ullr pick has not worked out nearly as well, and Jose seems to have lost a lot of that momentum that he had in game 1. I mean, he's got less player damage than the enemy Artio.
Ooh.
This Ullr, this Bakasura, both underneath everyone on Bedtime's calling. Those 2 pictures have not been effective at all.
Well, I think it's also, you know, how the play was drawn up, right? Jacques on the early game jungler allowed the Ullr to really get off the ground. Here on Bakasura, I mean, Bakasura is one of the more item-dependent characters in the game, needs to get to this mid-game point to really start being scary. Not exactly somebody that's going to set up the enemy for your mid laner, so it all crumbled from there.
Good Fearless on Aquino, forced him to use Scarab's Blessing on himself. He does get reset right on time, but Spirit of the Nine wins just off the mark. Sarpei still able to find it, but Arya Cruz under siege on the backside of the team fight. Jocks finally able to put himself on the board, but he will fall.
No!
Able to survive.
He's getting out for now, dodges the bear claws up left, but finds himself in the tornado. The natural disaster will take care of the unnatural demon. Double Fearless on here for Kana. Jose Raito and Loki Bertu pushed away, but guess what? Guess what's healthy?
The Phoenix.
Yeah.
Very little damage onto that at all. B seems to be pretty concerned with this mid-Phoenix siege for good reason, but Kana's still behind.
Got the shift.
Nice
King
ult.
Arthur going up to the sky. The axe will miss, but it ain't no thing. Loki Berto puts number 3. Number 3?
That's it.
Number 3?
Only 3.
That's obscene. I can't believe it's that low of a kill count. 10,000 gold deficit. And with 16 kills, Bedtime's calling own 13 of them. I knew MV3 was behind the 8-ball aggro, but I didn't realize it was this much.
It hasn't been a good start for MV3 in this game at all. I mean, this is where the last game ended in their favor, right around this time. They're starting to get a little bit better. I mean, Jox is getting items online. Still have some room to grow for him.
Do it, Ollie! Why didn't you do it, Ollie?
He got it anyways. He got it. No, he didn't. You're right. I'm sorry. MV3, take it. I can't believe that they went for that anyways through the tornado tick damage. I mean, that's a coin flip at best.
Spirit of the Nine Winds does absurd damage. It is one of the best abilities to confirm an objective. Look at this. 800 plus 120% scaling on a character who's going to have an absurd amount of power. You're looking at 1,000? You're looking at 1,800 damage there? I'm rounding it out, but let's be real here. You're looking at, I mean, that's 1,800 plus damage?
Yeah, that's a lot.
You can confirm the Gold Fury.
You can. They would have reset in the face of Spirit of the Nine Winds for sure.
Force them to reset?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's worried that there's going to be a team fight that breaks out in between that Gold Fury and the next time his ultimate would be up. That seems unlikely to me. I don't disagree with you. He's got 20% CDR, so it's coming up fairly soon.
CDR?
So, I don't know. He probably doesn't secure gold in that realm. I think that he's probably saying that's pretty unlucky that I didn't get it, and I'd agree with him.
I mean, sure.
With just Whirlwind.
Yeah. Is it a tornado?
It's both. It's a Whirlwind and a Tornado.
It's a whirlwind of tornadoes.
Well, the ability's called Whirlwind.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
What's...
You got it, Doug.
I don't know. Oh! What's the first one called, Aggro?
Squall.
No. Zephyr.
Oh, that's right. We changed it to Zephyr. I forgot about that one.
How about number 2?
No, you tell me. You're the one on the roll.
Slither.
That's Slipstream now. So we both got together. We would have had the old kit. Perfect.
Bedtimes calling here on the aggressive. They're looking to confirm the control of the Fire Giant pit. And they're going to get control of the Fire Giant pit. But this is a fight, 10,000 gold down, that MV3 can take. And BTC needs to be aware of that.
Jox is split pushing. They actually send Sarpei over. He should blink in right now. We just saw Jox use his jump. That's your fight to take, Sarpei, and he doesn't take it. You're never gonna get a better fight opportunity than that. He used the ultimate actually and did not blink. That's yeah, it's not the call. Kind of need to do both in that position.
Ripperoonie.
What's up?
Ripperoonie. There's the ultimate coming out from King Arthur. Beads away as Ollie. Here's the Spirit of the Nine Winds. And won't hit anybody, really. But it will keep Kino out of the conversation. So now looking, Berto
right on time.
Saved! But he's put it to another ultimate. Kana going to take care of Beast. And here's Jax. But the turnaround is good. Damage from the Bakasura finally on point. Jax gets one and sets his solo up for the other.
Kana still very, very healthy, though, and Sarpei is here. Still no ultimate available for him. He used to try and stop the split push on the left-hand side. A 2-for-1 in favor of MV3. Jox, you called it. He starts to do a little bit of damage, and just like that, the team fights start going their way a little bit better. Loki Berto's aggressive blink and the back line ends up paying off for him. He forces beads out from Ollie and just keeps him at bay throughout that entire team fight. Don't love the final item, High to the Urchin.
That's
less
rough.
Stacks than it used to need, but
That's rough.
still needs some stacks, my guy. The Mantle of Discord would have done an awful lot more for Loki Berto in this spot.
I agree. High to the Urchin, one of my favorite items, but partially because of how nuanced it is. You need about 7 stacks for it to be really competitive versus some of the other items. And looking at the 19 kill count total in this 30-minute game, I question how many stacks you're going to see past this point. A single team fight, you'll get maybe 4 stacks if done right, and you're still kind of behind the 8 ball there. Sarpé on the run, Jose Raitu. And here's what I love about this build here, Aggro, is that going I guess we credit adapting with Crit Nemesis. Crit Nemesis rarely my favorite build, but when you're looking up against what the Jacques can do, how you can just delete characters, your job is to answer back. I think that totally lines up.
Loki Berto on the receiving end of Spirit of the Nine wins this time, just like Naja. King Arthur finds himself setting himself up sometimes. Just like that, they get that kill. Good blink from Sarpé. That time ends up using it. And then one-on-one against Jacques. But all of a sudden, it's Bedtimes Calling, who have 2 members of the enemy team dead. And they're the ones pulling the Fire Giant. But MV3 should know that Ollie's ultimate is on cooldown from this position. So not a lot of great secure, but Kino's the only one here.
Nobody's here. Kino just going to go ahead and watch. The Fire Giant goes down one more time. Oh, my Jacques doing the Primal Fury. Right call, wrong call, in between.
Right call.
Right call?
You got something to do. It gives your team some global gold. If it gets to the point where there's going to be another Fire Giant, then you've got a Primal Fury buff underneath your belt to try and get it quickly. I've got no problem with that. He can't go and affect that fight on fire at all.
4 players here on the right side. Nemesis, of course, doing the 4-1 split. Right side, Phoenix taking a ton of damage. Arya Cruz just wheeling and dealing. Kino stuck, but Jacques goes down. Sarpé wins the 1v1. Now Bedtimes Calling looking to put MV3 to bed.
Neither jungler ulted or used a relic at all. I mean, remember the blink was down from earlier from Sarpé. I have no idea what happened there in the mid lane. I wonder if Jacques never backed and just came straight from Primal Fury a little bit weak and got crit a couple times.
Yeah, I think that crit Nemesis really blows players up when they least expect it. And Sarpé just, look at that! From halfway to 0, Sarpé brings the player down. And that's what I was talking about here. Nemesis and Bedtimes Calling going to confirm a game number 3. And this is what I was talking about with respect to the build coming out from Nem, is that when you're, a lot of times you want to kind of be the setup man. Here, we understood. Nemesis, this is my job to kill players, and that's what he did.
Yeah, a little bit of a different build. I don't love the late Golden Blade at all. I mean, he got it first item, but still had it pretty late in the game. But other than that, I do think that build can be really good, especially when the enemy mid laner doesn't have an Aegis and instead picks up a Blink. That led to that easy solo kill on the left-hand side where Jose just kind of got sliced and diced, literally. That's the name of the ability, by the way.
The number 2.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah,
well, number 2 in the books as far as games are concerned. Let's look forward to number 3, but bounce back on the desk.
Must be real cold in the booth there. It is going to be Fitch and Tully that are going to be breaking it down for you after a tough game 2, at least if you're an MV3 fan. If you're a Bedtimes Calling fan, you're like, all right, things are looking better now. Things are looking the way that you want. And this is exactly how you want your mid lane and jungler playing together.
Last game it was MV3's time. This time it's Bedtime Calling's time. I liked Sarpé's Nemesis. I also liked the fact that Ollie on the Cuckoo had a fantastic performance. A lot safer of a god is Cuckoo than a Giannis. Despite being able to go through portals, you don't have to be that close to the action. And that just allowed Ollie to finish off the game at 6-0-4 without a single death.
Yeah, man. It's so insane, man. People can walk into the Whirlpool and take damage. If you hit them with the Whirlpool once, the ticks will keep going and they'll take damage. The Tornado even, if you want to call it that. There's the Tornado yet again.
Because there's a Poseidon with a Whirlpool.
Does a lot of good damage.
It does.
Yep.
That's kind of what he does.
He has an ult, too.
He needs high execution to be able to be successful, or just really good setup.
Sure.
One or the other. And if you get both, now you're really in a good spot.
And in this game, they got both. Yes, it was definitely a better performance from them. I think it helped that they weren't getting nearly as bullied by this King Arthur as you would expect, and I think there's a lot on Loki Berto, because it's not like he was under a ton of pressure in the solo lane or anything like that either. I think that they definitely expected more out of that pick. Kino had a couple of early deaths, but also some really good revives, so this Khepri pick definitely worked out. That was one of the threads I was talking about, this Khepri, the Fafnir. So maybe that would help some. You did see Bedtimes Calling itemize into some anti-attack speed very well. They have the Myth Guardian, the Witchblade as well. So certainly they had some tools, but MV3 never really got off the ground.
No, they needed to play more aggressively and look for the plays. And as a Bakasura, without any CC coming from his side, it's difficult to do so. And Uller middle with the Bakasura, like you're basically getting only a single target stun out of that Uller axe. So it's not that easy to really lock down multiple members. You're having to rely on the Khepri to be able to bring you that form of CC, and that's why Jacques kind of faltered and got behind. He could have just made the same kind of plays the way he did in the Achilles in that game number 1. So it was a great Achilles ban out of Bedtime Calling.
Yeah, you don't always want your camper to be the one. The Root is nice for that
Yeah.
from range, but sometimes it can be hard for your camper to be the one that's up front setting up for the team. He excels so much at peeling for you. So I think that's a good point, right? That they maybe didn't have quite as much setup as they would have liked with this draft. So now MV3 have to go back to the drawing board up against Bedtimes calling. They're in some trouble. Backs up against the wall. It's 1-1. One more game will settle this for them. And even with King Arthur, they couldn't get it done. I'm stuck on this pick because I don't think Loki Berto did enough.
No, he didn't. But the thing is, like, when you're having a Bakasura jungle that's struggling in the early game,
Sure.
the 1v1, especially up against tier, the power cleave in the defensive stance, any damage you do as a King Arthur is going to get negated. Similar idea to the matchup up against the Artio or up against the Camisards, where they have enough sustain to deal with all the poke that you're dishing out.